In this video, I'd like to talk about three different topics. We're going to talk about the toString method in classes, how to copy the class, not just copy the address, but actually copy the contents of a class, and how to figure out whether or not a class is equal to, or an object is equal to another object. We'll go ahead and start off with writing a showString method or toString method. The balance, the credit card class already has sort of a proto version of a showString. It's a little bit complicated in how you could literally just put string value of card balance in the return. But the money class, which is basically a bank account, does not have something similar to return its fields into a string. Now, this is important in the sense that toString is a method that's innate in every class. It doesn't matter whether or not you explicitly type it out or you don't. But what happens is if you type in a method. Let's go ahead and just run in the main. In this main class, or erase all of this, and say we go ahead and say my credit is equal to new credit card, all right, and say we typed in print system.out print line, and then we type in my credit, and it'll automatically send out get rid of this import statement here. It'll automatically create a toString, called the toString method, but it will print out the memory address of my credit. So let's run this. And so this is the memory address for my credit, right? But we don't want that. We want we really just want to create a string that shows the status of the status of the class of the object in particular. So let's go ahead and create a explicit type for a toString method for money, and so we'll just do a public. We'll return a string, and we'll call it toString. No arguments, and it'll string is equal to, and we'll say value of, so that's a method in the string class, string.value of balance, and it'll convert the double variable of balance into a string, store it into the variable string here, and then we'll simply type return string. Now we could make this a lot more simple, and this is how your book does it, but you could easily just do this. You can erase this part completely, and just say, instead of using a variable, you just say return the value of balance here. And we can do the same thing here, even though we have something similar. Show balance, we'll just do it, so we'll have the method available, and we'll return string dot value of, and then card balance. So those are two ways you could do it. The IntelliJ is smart enough to try to autocorrect you to actually do it this way, which is more code efficient. But let's go ahead and run this again, and it'll run my credit. And if you remember, the balance is preset to $1,000. We can actually change this, add a 0, so that it's actually incremented correctly. And it will return 1,000 because that's what's stored in my credit, called the toString, and it reported in a string format 1000.0. Right, so now that we have that squared away, let's review how we can create a copy of a object. And we don't want to, if we simply type in, say, do another instance, my credit 2, if we set my credit equal to my credit 2, it does nothing. First of all, this wasn't initialized. But if you set these two equal to each other, all you're doing is setting pointing the reference all you're doing is pointing the reference pointer to the memory address of my credit, right? So it's not really correct, right? You're not actually making a true copy of it. So there's one or two ways you can do it. One way, which is, or you can copy an object. One way is by having a copy constructor. So basically, all a copy constructor does is creates a copy within the class, right? So you could say beneath here have another constructor credit card, and you could say card balance is equal to, and we'll create a new object, and we'll call that object, and we'll call it a credit card class object 2, right? And then we'll say object 2 dot card balance, and that way you create a copy of the object within the constructor, and it's built into the class. And the second way is to make a reference copy, which is exactly what we talked about with respect to memory addresses, by creating a new class and then setting the original class equal to that new class, or the new class equal to the original. And that all that does is points to a new address. We've done that before when we've used a method from an object from a method that returns an object. We set it equal to a new a newly created object within the main method. That's a reference copy, which is fine. And the last thing we were talking about is a similar topic. It's setting or determining whether or not a object is equal to each other. So if we say if, and we'll create an if statement, we'll say if, we'll say system.out, print line, if the object is the same, we'll say they are the same, right? But if we set my credit equal to my credit 2, it's never going to be true, because all it's looking at are the memory addresses. It's never going to be equivalent. So you have to figure out a different way to determine equivalencies. So a way to do that is we can create a separate method but we're going to have to actually determine what within the inside of credit card we're going to set equal to one another, right? So we're going to need to, first of all, we'll probably need to create a new method within the credit card class, and we'll go ahead and create a method that just returns the double, since it's easier to compare actual doubles and integers for comparison purposes. We'll simply say return card balance. All right. And then we'll go back to the main class, and we'll say we've created, we'll go ahead and set this instance equal to new credit card. And so this initializes the my credit variable or reference variable. And then we'll create a new method, and we'll call this is equal. And we'll say it's a public method, static void, and is equal. And it'll accept two credit card objects, card 1 and card 2. And basically it's one if else statement. If card 1 is equal to, so we'll get card balance is equal to card 2. So we'll say get card balance here as well. If those are equal to each other, then we'll say system.out. The card balances are the same. Now remember that each instance is already predefined with $1,000 on the card and in the constructor. And so else here, else system.out, the print line, the card balances are not the same. Okay. So and then we'll go ahead and call is equal here, and then we'll pass my credit and then my credit too, and this function will determine whether or not not function in Java and Python it's a function, but this method will determine whether or not these two objects are equal. So we'll go ahead and run this, and remember the card balances are the same. So that finishes that particular lesson off. So now that we've determined, we created a toString method, created a copy constructor, and also talked about copy references and how to determine whether or not objects are equal to one another. We can move on to a concept called aggregation. We can make an aggregate class, which is sort of the name of this project here, is the aggregate account. And so in the next lesson, we're going to create a class that aggregates both credit card and money and into one aggregate account. You can think of it as, like, say, your Chase account. You have both your credit cards and your bank account statement on the same account. So it's the aggregate account. All right. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Send me an email or direct message me on Canvas.